Paris is a city we think we know, but when you take the time to walk it, when you leave the main avenues for gardens and squares, another Paris reveals itself. And there are 1,000 ways to look at it. For this new series, we chose to tell the city differently. 4 films, 4 Paris, 4 atmospheres. This first chapter takes us on the left bank, a Paris shaped by universities, gardens and memory, where the city grew around knowledge and ideas. From Saint-Germain-des-Prés to the Arènes de Lutèce, from the Luxembourg Gardens to the Panthéon, Paris is not visited, it's felt. We begin this day on Rue Buffon, along the edge of the Plants Garden. It's here, in the 5th district, that Paris was conceived as much as it was built. The Jardin des Plantes isn't a park like the others. Created in 1626 under Louis XIII, it was first a royal garden dedicated to medicinal plants, a place of research, of science, of knowledge. Today, it's one of the oldest botanical gardens in the world, and it still carries that memory. You enter it the way you enter a library, with calm, with attention. The paths are straight, orderly. The tree is labeled, catalogued. Each section has its purpose: alpine plants, heritage roses, tropical greenhouses. It's a garden that invites observation. At this hour, Paris is still quiet. Few tourists, a handful of joggers. The paths slowly fill. A few footsteps, a few voices, the discreet sound of the city waking up. And that particular silence of Parisian gardens in the morning, the one where you can still hear the birds. We walk along the Grande Galerie de l'Évolution, its imposing glass roofs, its 19th century facades. Inside, thousands of preserved specimens tell the story of life. But this morning, we stay outside. We walk. We look. The Jardin des Plantes is an unexpected Paris. A vertical, structured Paris, deeply alive. Just a few streets from the garden, we discover another place, suspended in time. The Arènes de Lutèce. You reach them by descending a small staircase from Rue Monge, and suddenly Paris disappears. We are in the 1st century AD, Lutetia, the ancient Gallo-Roman city that would become Paris. These arenas could hold up to 15,000 spectators. Gladiator fights took place here, as well as theatrical performances. For centuries, they were buried, forgotten, covered by the city growing above them. It was only in 1869, during construction work, that they were rediscovered. Today, the arenas are a public garden. The stone tiers serve as benches. Children play with ball on what was once the stage. There is nothing monumental here, no tourist staging, no oversized explanatory panels, just ancient stones. And Parisians living their everyday lives inside a Roman amphitheater. It may be one of the strangest places in Paris, not because it's spectacular, but because it's there, simple, accessible, lived in. A remnant of 2000 years of history, where people come to play football. We head back up toward Place Jussieu, home to Pierre and Marie Curie campus of Sorbonne University, one of the largest scientific universities in France. Here, concrete and glass buildings house lecture halls, laboratories and libraries. Far from postcard Paris, this is the Paris that studies, the Paris that researches. We arrive at Place Saint-Germain-des-Prés, facing les Deux Magots, the legendary café, the one of Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, of Hemingway, of Prévert, a symbol of post-war intellectual Paris. Today, it has become a tourist spot. We don't linger, but we had to pass by, because Saint-Germain-des-Prés without les Deux Magots would be like telling the story of Montmartre without mentioning the Sacré-Cœur. We cross the square, and beside the church, a small garden, Square Laurent Prache. A few benches in the shade, centuries-old trees, a small flower bed, almost nothing. But it's exactly what's needed after the bustle of the square. Just next to it stands the church of Saint-Germain-des-Prés, one of the oldest in Paris, founded in the 6th century, rebuilt in the 11th, restored in the 19th. We enter. The interior is dark, cool. An immediate contrast with the bustle of the square, Romanesque vaults, sculpted capitals worn by centuries. Stained glass windows filter a soft, muted light. A few worshippers sit silently in the nave. It's not Notre Dame nor the Sacré-Cœur, but it's one of the oldest stones in Paris. It withstood the Viking siege in 885. It was looted during the French Revolution. Its tower torn down, then restored in the 19th century. A place that has crossed 15 centuries, witnessed kings, revolutions, and wars, and is still here, intact. We leave Saint-Germain-des-Prés via Rue Bonaparte. A few streets later, a square opens up, Place Saint-Sulpice, wide, mineral, almost austere. At its center, the Fontaine des Quatre Évêques. 4 bronze statues facing the cardinal points, Bossuet, Fénelon, Fléchier, Massillon. 4 great Catholic orators of the 17th century. The Fontaine doesn't bear their name by chance. It's also known as the Fontaine of the 4 cardinal points, because none of the 4 bishops represented was ever a cardinal. A small Parisian irony. Around it, discreet cafes, a few passersby, few tourists. And then, at the far end, Saint-Sulpice Church, one of the largest churches in Paris, imposing, massive, two asymmetrical towers dominating the square. We go inside. The interior is colossal, monumental columns, high vaults, a vast nave. On the left, the Chapel of the Angels. Three frescoes by Delacroix, dark, powerful, dramatic works. Further on, the gnomon, a copper line embedded in the floor running across the entire church, a marble obelisk at its end, an 18th century astronomical instrument designed to calculate the exact date of Easter. Every day at noon, a ray of sunlight strikes this line. A church that measures time. A few worshippers pray in the side chapels. Tourists look up towards the frescoes. We step back outside. The light of the square hits us again. On a blind wall along the Rue Ferrou, a 300 square meters mural reproduces Rimbaud Le Bateau Ivre in full. Hand calligraphed, inaugurated in 2012, a tribute to the poet who, at 16, recited this text for the first time just nearby, at Café de Nogent in 1871. The Luxembourg Gardens are not the oldest in Paris. Not the wildest, but they may be the most Parisian. Created in the 17th century, they are now one of the most frequented places in the capital. Focused chess players gathered around green tables. Children pushing small boats across the large basin. Joggers, readers, strollers. The park is dotted with numerous statues, including one of Verlaine and his friend Gabriel Vicaire. Near the discreet tennis courts, we enter the Rose Garden, a small enclosed garden set apart from the main path. Dozens of rose varieties, narrow paths, wooden trellises, and at the end of summer, some flowers are already fading, others still in bloom. It's a quiet place, few visitors, a handful of amateur photographers, a bench in the shade. You could walk past without noticing it, but it's there, a garden within the garden. We walk past the Orangerie. Every summer, the Luxembourg Gardens host a contemporary art exhibition. Admission is free, and the works on display vary from year to year. That's what we appreciate about these summer exhibitions. No ticket, no line. head down towards the Medici fountain, a shaded path, trees arching overhead, and at the end, the fountain, long, narrow, surrounded by greenery. A still pool of water. Ducks glide slowly across the surface. At the back, a sculpted grotto. Polyphemus, surprising Galatea and Assis. A mythological scene frozen in stone. It's one of the most photographed spots in the Luxembourg Gardens, but also one of the most soothing. Metal chairs line the basin. People sit, read, observe. Time slows down. At the far end of the park stands the Luxembourg Palace. Built in 1625 for Marie de Medicis, who wanted to recreate her native Florence in Paris. Today, it houses the French Senate. Its dome and classical facades overlook the gardens, imposing. We leave the gardens via Rue Soufflot, a long, straight perspective, and at the end, the Panthéon. Impossible to miss. Its dome towers over the entire Latin Quarter. The Panthéon is not a church, at least not anymore. Built in the 18th century as the Church of Saint-Geneviève, it became during the Revolution a secular monument dedicated to honoring the great figures of the Republic. To great men, the grateful homeland. The inscription is carved into the pediment. We climb the steps. The interior is monumental. A vast nave, Corinthian columns, a painted dome rising 83 meters high. Everything here invites contemplation. The walls are covered with monumental frescoes. The story of Saint Geneviève, the epic of Joan of Arc, the great moments of the nation, academic, solemn paintings, heavy with symbolism. At the center, Foucault's pendulum, a bronze sphere suspended from the top of the dome. A scientific device demonstrating the rotation of the Earth. Installed here in 1851 by the physicist Léon Foucault. Science and Republic. Reason and Memory. We descend into the crypt. This is where the great men rest, and since 1995, a few great women as well. Voltaire, Rousseau, Hugo, Zola, Dumas, Marie Curie, Joséphine Baker, Jean Moulin, Malraux, Monet, Simone Weil. Vaulted corridors, stone tombs, simple plaques. There is nothing spectacular here, no gilding, no grand staging, just names, and the weight of what they represent. We walk slowly, we read the inscriptions, we remember. Some visitors whisper, others remain silent. A few tourists take discreet photos. It is one of the most solemn places in Paris. Not the most visited, not the most Instagrammable, but one of the most meaningful. Leaving the Panthéon, one could head straight back down toward the Latin Quarter. But right next to it, almost hidden in the shadow of the Republican Dome, stands a church too often overlooked. The Church of Saint-Étienne-du-Mont. It dates back to the Renaissance. Its style is hybrid, flamboyant, Gothic, emerging Baroque. Inside, a rood screen. The only one still intact in Paris. A lace work of stone crossing the nave, suspended between earth and sky. Here lie Pascal and Racine, not in the Panthéon script, but in this parish church beneath anonymous slabs. Light filters in through the stained glass windows. It's discreet, it's silent. And it's exactly what is needed after the solemnity of the Panthéon. We leave the church and walk down the hill. The Latin Quarter waits. From the Montagne Sainte-Geneviève, the Panthéon overlooks the Latin Quarter. Since the Middle Ages, people have come here to learn. Teachers taught in Latin. Students lived on this hill. The name remained. Around the Montagne Sainte-Geneviève, knowledge shaped the neighborhood even before architecture. Lecture halls, libraries, ancient streets led out along the paths of Lutetia, such as Rue Mouffetard, one of the oldest streets in Paris, following the route of a Roman road toward Lyon. Here, the city didn't grow around power, but around transmission. The cafes begin to fill. This day on the left bank wasn't about showing everything. Not the Grand Boulevard, not the most photographed monuments, just one Paris. The one built around knowledge, memory, ideas. Scientific gardens, forgotten Roman arenas, concrete universities, centuries-old churches, mythological fountains, silent crypts. A Paris you don't rush through, a Paris you feel. And there are 1,000 others. In the next episode, we will discover another face of Paris, known all over the world, Montmartre. See you soon for new discoveries.